What's up, ladies and berms? This is David Davidson. I'm the co-founder of Mountain Bike Academy. This episode is for you if you've gotten on your bike and you don't feel like you know what to do, or you feel uncomfortable going over rocks and roots. If you feel like maybe you've done some other sports before and you're having trouble transferring over your skills to mountain biking. And especially this is for you if you just want to know how to do this right the first time. So if you're a new rider getting into it, or if you're someone who's been riding for a long time and maybe never had like some instruction, pay close attention because we're going to dive in and get after it. So the first one is we're going to cover what I call stand with certainty, okay? And for this one, we're going to need to drop our dropper post. So go ahead and hit that dropper post button, drop that seat down, or, lower your seat post if you need to. And the reason why we need to do this is to make room to move the bike under us, all right? And once you've gotten that seat post down, first skill we're going to dive into is cornering. Now, pay attention to this one now. I expect that you're going to need to come back to this drill after going through some of the standing tall, standing low lessons I have directly after this one. So watch this entire video so you don't miss anything. With cornering, the first thing we got to pay attention to is, there's 3 steps. The first step is we've got to move our torso. Now, what most instructional videos are going to tell you to do, what most clinics are going to tell you to do, is to just drop the outside foot. Again, that's Ozempic when we need a new fitness and diet plan. You got to change your lifestyle. Ozempic is trash. Sorry, I'm going to offend someone here. Ozempic is trash when the ultimate result you want is health. And if you really want a corner like this, nice and smooth, then what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to absolutely be able to balance. Now, what you're going to notice is that my outside foot is not dropped and my pedals are level with the horizon. How am I going to be able to do something like this? Well, first, I need to make room to move the bike. And how do I do that? By getting my torso nice and low. So step number 1 is torso. The second T is we need to tilt the bike. All right, so watch right here. I'm setting up for the turn. I'm going to tilt the bike over. Everyone pay close attention to first step number 1, torso. Second one, and you guys can say this out loud at the trail or say it in your mind, tilt. Number 2 is tilt, and the number 3 is twist your turn. All right, so what I'm going to do, what you're going to notice is my body, which is my weight is centered over the bike. Here's the bottom bracket. Here's the center of my mass, which means that the center of my mass is passing through the bottom bracket, and it's also inside of my tires. All right, that means I can push against the tires and it will push me into the turn. The final thing we're going to do, you might notice this little bit of movement right there with the torso. Can you see how I move from here to here? That's twisting. What we're going to do is we're going to sit on top of the bike and just twist. Look to the direction you want to turn, starting with your eyes, and twist everything. Twist the head, twist the shoulders, you can even see my knees are pointed in. Okay, now once we have this torso tilt, twist movement down, again, that's not the hard part. Again, you need to watch this entire video. I know it's long, but I'm going to cover every single little detail of what's stopping you from doing this. What you're going to notice is that I have something called the pedal press engage. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. Also, I have a low position where my knees are lined up next to each other. If you notice right here, I have a triangle. All right, so I'm going to talk about this later in the video, but I'm really going to talk about cornering because that's what this little part is. I'm just teasing out the next few parts here. Why am I going blurry? I must be Bigfoot. Represent Mitch Hedberg. All right. Now, with cornering, if you're a beginner or an intermediate mountain biker, the single most important thing you can do, again, doesn't have to do with your body position. It has to do with supporting the torso with the core. Now, I'm actually going to go ahead and show you guys what it's like to drop your outside foot and do this. Surprise! I didn't crash. Nothing bad happened. It's not a bad technique. And it's actually, the most important thing is that, again, we get the torso nice and lowered. We get that tilt of the bike. So if you drop your outside foot, it's a nice, easy cheat code because you frankly don't even have to tilt the bike as much. But it makes room for you to tilt the bike in. So if you struggle with mobility, this is a good little cheat code to be able to tilt the bike over. Honestly, part of the reason why you don't tilt the bike over as much is because this takes your entire body and it locks it into a rigid unit. So if you're listening to certain instructors who are telling you to just drop your outside foot, to be honest with you, totally fine to do that on turns like this. So if you ride in Arkansas where they have lots of berm turns, this is a flat turn. Like there's no berm here. If you ride in bike parks where there's a lot of berms, if you ride in areas where there's not a lot of rocks and roots, in this area, you can drop that outside foot and you're going to be okay. As soon as the trail turns into a real downhill trail, a real enduro trail, a real mountain biking course with actual challenges in the middle here, or it starts going downhill, you better keep your feet level. This is extremely important because if you don't, then your entire locked up body is going to feel that change in the trail, and it's going to 100% cause some issues. So I'm going to do it a few more times here. This is a semi-dropped pedal. All right. A lot of people ask about this. Semi-dropped pedal. What if I drop my outside foot just a little bit? So notice that my feet are not level with the horizon, but I've got a good tilt with the bike this time. Okay. So again, super detailed. We're going through some nuances here. I've got my torso tilted forward at the hips, and also I am low on the bike. What am I going to do? I'm going to drop that outside foot down a little bit, and I'm going to bring that inside foot up and touch the saddle to the inside of my left knee. My left knee is, the rider's left knee is also pointed in towards the turn. If you do not keep your feet absolutely level, a really good cheat code is to point your inside knee where you want to turn and point your eyes where your inside knee is looking. This is a good way to think about it as well. Again, same net result. Almost carved this one too tight. Can you see where I put my tires right there? Whop. Pretty sweet. All these are good examples. And again, there's no necessarily right or wrong way to do this. It's just that I get asked all the time about cornering, and people know probably 5% of what you can actually do with this amazing move. So again, fundamental is the same. Get the torso nice and low. Boom. Tilt the bike. Twist everything. This one, again, I did a little bit of a 50-50. The cranks are pointed at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so we're in between there. Pretty fast, had to grab my brakes. Just set up for it wrong. Actually came in too low to the turn there. So one of the keys here as well is that if you struggle with cornering and you're a beginner rider, the single biggest struggle that I see is with tilting the bike over like that. And the reason why is because you're not supporting your torso with your core and your arms are locked so that you can balance on the bike because you have to lean on the bars. I covered this later in this video. Honestly, it looks cool. It looks good. What you're going to notice is that if you, again, kind of force that inside arm to go straight, then you can get away with some, frankly, pretty bad form and still be really good at cornering. Okay? So that's my tip for you. Also, it's really cool to pedal out of these things. Got a few more here, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Torso. Dropping that torso down. Apologies. Let me go full speed first. All right, going back to torso drop, tilt the bike, and twist everything. 3 T's. Torso, tilt, twist. That was a muted tilt. Still got away with it. Not bad. I'm going to do one more quick example here. Torso nice and low, hyper exaggerated twist, and I actually didn't turn as sharp this time, okay? So this is how I prefer to ride. You don't get as much carving potential out of this. I like to be very twisty on the bike. Why? Because it looks cool. I mean, look at this. This is cool. If this is me, I'm feeling cool on the bike, and that's the goal, is to feel cool. I'm not really I'm not really tilting the bike as much, and you can tell that my arms are kind of equally bent there. One is not extended more than the other. The bike is not super twisted. My feet are level with the horizon. Okay, so I'm not really relying on the tilt or the outside foot as much here, as much as just twisting really a lot on top of the bike, especially starting right here. You see that? So what this does, you can actually get a lot of cornering power by turning the bike on top of the bike. What this will do for you guys is really fun. It's not the most effective technique if you don't have good mobility in your knees and ankles and hips. I mean, my head is pointed this way, and my feet are pointed this way. We're 90 degrees there. So lots of different ways to explore cornering. Again, my favorite is just the very first one, the basic get low with your torso, tilt the bike, keep the feet nice and level, and then ride through. It's pretty fast, pretty stable. All right, on to the next one. we're going to practice something called standing tall. And now here's the thing. If you're an intermediate or advanced rider, I gotta be honest, because the number one skill that you can have is to be balanced while standing tall, even if you're a downhill rider, even if you ride rough and rowdy stuff. Now, if you don't trust me, go watch a downhill race and watch the riders. They actually look a lot like this, but just they're pointed downhill a little bit more. And the reason why this stance is so important is because this one allows you to conserve energy and also move actively while on the bike. Now, what I want us to pay attention to here for this first standing with certainty is just standing tall using something I call the pedal press. And if we zoom in really closely here, you can see that my feet, the front foot is pointed kind of towards the camera. So what you want to do is push your feet away from each other. And a good way to do that is to kind of create a little bit of a shape like this with your feet. And when you do this, it just gives you a stable platform to stand on, and it keeps you from having to brace on a single foot. You can stand on both feet this way, all right? Now, once you do this stance, you want to ride comfortably. And again, this is what it looks like from the side, all right? I'm going to slow it down really good for you here. Practice standing up tall, relax knees, relax elbows, and maybe bent over just a little bit like this in the picture, okay? So once you've got this down, I want you to focus again on putting your weight into your feet. A lot of coaches talk about heavy feet, light hands. This is how you achieve it, not by thinking to yourself, heavy feet, light hands. You actually need to do this thing called the pedal press, all right? Now, once you got the pedal press down, we're going to move on. And by the way, you can take this out of the trail and practice it with you, with your, no one's going to notice. The second thing we want to do is, while we have this kind of pedal press engaged, I want to show you from the side. I really want you to work on having your knees next to each other. Okay, so if you're looking from the side of your riding stance, you want to make sure that you don't have a staggered stance. What I mean by that is if my front knee was really far out and I was pushing forward on my flat foot like this, that's going to cause a lot of issues. I used to ride like this for a long time and my front quad would burn. So if you're a rider and you're like, man, my front quad is really burning, this is why. You don't want to do this. Instead, you want to have your knees next to each other. All right. So now mine are not perfectly next to each other. Don't over stress about it and read into it literally. Again, the goal here is to create a little bit of a small triangle. You see the triangle right there. All right. Moving on. Once you got the pedal press down and you can feel it, then what we want to do is we want to bounce on the bike. And how this is going to help you out on the trail is it's going to show you how actively you can be engaged. And I'll show you in a minute here when we talk about rock gardens, how this will make sense. So once you're here on top of the bike, bounce using your feet, okay? Now, what I want to really double stress to you is we're not smashing the arms up and down. Our hands are along for the ride. So wherever the bars go, we want our hands to follow. And we want our torso to be kind of still. All right, so just bounce like you're bouncing on a trampoline like this. Do that 5 or 10 times. Now, again, the cool part about this kind of drill is that you can do this and no one knows you're practicing. So there's zero chance of embarrassment. If you're out on the trail and you're like, oh, I really need to practice what Dave said, you can do this. You can do this on a trail. You can do this in the parking lot. You can do it in your garage, whatever. Finally, once you get to get through that and you feel like you can bounce on the pedals, we need to do what's called a tall wiggle. Now, a tall wiggle is where you stand up tall and you wiggle the bike side to side like this, all right? Now, again, with the seat dropped, you should feel the seat touch either side of your legs, okay? So if you look right here, we're going to tap the inside knee, tap the inside of the other knee, back and forth. And you're also going to notice that my feet stay level with the horizon. Now, for those of you who struggle with this move, you may be rocking the feet with the bike as a unit. What you need to do instead is as your bike tilts to the rider's left, that's this way, just let the feet kind of go like this, and to the right, like this. So I call it floating the feet. I covered it in my other video, 12 Beginner Basics, and another video I did that was, I think, like yesterday. I'm sorry, I'm losing track. Do a lot of these things. And just, again, when we float the feet and we tap the saddle side to side, what ends up happening is the torso stays very still, okay? So again, I know this is a beginner video, but I've seen 20-year riders who can't do this. They literally can't rock their bike side to side. And the reason why you can't do this, let me get here in the middle here. The reason you can't do this is because a lot of times you are locking the upper body and you're moving just your elbows. Okay, so everything up here is locked. Here is locked. What you need to do is just, again, support your torso using the core. Talk about this a lot. And when we support the torso with the core, what we're able to do as a mountain biker is we're able to move freely on the bike, and the torso becomes the first mover. All right. And when the torso is the first mover, you can actually do 90% of what you see the professional riders do. And I mean that sincerely, because that's all they're doing. They're sincerely just moving their torso where it needs to be, and they're connected with their bike, and they're moving fluidly. So again, it's possible to do some pretty advanced stuff if you master the basics. One of my mentors, and well, he's a friend. One of my mentors, he teaches professional yoga instructors how to do better handstands. And he just says mastery of the fundamentals is mastery. And I'm sure that quote's been around for a while. So the final part of standing with certainty is going to be turning. This is just very simple. Just ride your bike and get going. Get into that tall stance like this. And what we want to do is just turn gently side to side. And what this is for, it's to just feel how the bike moves under us. Now you're going to notice if you're going at a slower speed like this, you're going to be turning the bars. Okay, we're not carving turns here. We're just going to turn the bars and feel the bike moving under us. Okay, so when you've got the pedal press engaged, you're standing tall, you got the ability to bounce, you got the ability to lean the bike side to side, then you should be able to feel like you can turn quite easily. One of the keys here is, again, make sure and just float those feet. I do not have an incredibly pronounced pedal press here because I don't need one. I just do the minimum amount needed. If I were you, I would practice exaggerating it. And the reason why is because it builds the habit. Otherwise, you end up staggering your knees like we talked about before, and it's kind of rough. All right. Now, once you've got this standing with certainty, that's actually about probably 60 to 80% of the riding position you need for trail riding. If you're doing pure downhill riding, 50-50. So let's talk about what to do if you're going down a hill. Let's talk about crouching with confidence. Crouching with confidence, what we need to do is we need to be able to translate that tall riding position into a lower riding position. And this is what I call just crouching with confidence. And so here's the thing. The instructors, they're going to tell you, get your elbows out, hinge over at the hips, all this stuff. And I think that those are actually maybe not the best way to think about it. Instead, what you need to do is you need to move your knees and your hips into a more compressed state while maintaining this triangle that we talked about in the last movie. You can't really see it here. I'll fast forward in a second. The end result we want is not to have bent knees and bent hips. The end result is we want to have our torso low and we want to have nice loose hands. In other words, all of our balance is right here over the cranks and over the bottom bracket. How do we do that? Pedal press. Super important. Now, here's the thing. If you're going on some downhills, you might notice that your heels will rock up and down, and this will not be preserved. That's okay. You don't need to firmly preserve the pedal press at all times. Instead, what we need to do is we need to create this pushing motion between the 2 feet so that you can brace against your front leg and so that you have something to brace against going back. That keeps you from falling forward and backward. Surprise. When that happens, you can move your hands easily. Now, I would practice if I were you. Again, notice the knees here. See how they stay next to each other the entire time? Again, it's not perfectly next to each other. What we're doing here is we're preserving this triangle shape all the way down into a low position and all the way up in a high position. That way, I always have balance through my feet. Again, so many instructors talk about heavy feet, light hands, and for those of you that haven't heard instructors talk about it, that's what they talk about. It is important, all right? So get into that low position, create that triangle, preserve that triangle. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure that our spine is lengthened. And here's maybe what not to do so much. Arching the back. If you arch your back and all we're doing is engaging the posterior chain, what can happen is we actually lose thoracic spine mobility. That's right here. When we lose thoracic spine mobility, it makes it very difficult to pump. And so we end up kind of locked with our elbows in low like this. And it can create a lot of imbalances. So it just feels really, really goofy too, even if you get your feet perfect. Another thing that's a common mistake I see is kind of like hunching over. And how you know you're doing this is you kind of have a desk posture no matter what the rest of your body is doing. And you also notice that there's a little bit of curve in my lower back here from doing this. And again, just what this looks like is we move our shoulders up and we kind of turtle shell in like this. All right. And you can even hear with how I'm breathing, this doesn't, the main, two main detriments to doing it this way. One is you can't breathe. And two, it's a really weak position, even though it looks strong because my elbows are out 90 degrees. There's my voice again. All right, so what we need to do is we need to have that. And again, on the last video I did, I talked about the haka hunker, like do that instead of this. And what that looks like is having a lengthened spine that's supported by the core. Now, what I really want you to pay attention to on this video, watch my hands as I ride. Can you see how they bounce a little bit and how they move freely and how I can wheelie out of it? Just goofing around in the yard. When you do this the right way and you get in that low position, I'm supporting 100% of my mass of my torso with my core, and therefore I don't have to lean on the bars. In fact, if I took my hands off the bars here, I would still be able to ride just fine. Can you see how the hands are kind of bobbing around? I'm not grabbing the bars hard at all. That's your goal. So to be able to get in this, get in the low position and get into this low position with that pedal press engaged. And again, right here through the core, however you need to do it, think about lengthening the spine, think about supporting the spine and doing it in a way where you don't have to try very hard. You'll be able to breathe deeply. You'll be able to move. And sincerely, it's one of the best feelings ever because you just feel loose on the bike. So good times. Now, finally, in order to kind of test our low position, I think a good drill to do, and again, ain't nobody going to make fun of you for this one because they're going to be like, oh, they're just testing their suspension. So again, this is an embarrassment-free move, if you want to try it, is just doing a low bounce with a wiggle. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get low on the bike, and then we're going to bounce through the pedals, and then we're going to wiggle the bike side to side and do them back and forth. All right, so it looks like this. Bounce, wiggle, bounce, wiggle. All right. Legitimately, my son, I got a shout out to my son for filming this. He's 8. So that's why we're filming the butt. All right, playing it back. Let's go in slow motion and really break this down. Again, most important thing, again, I've got a muted pedal press. My feet are pushing away from each other. You might not notice it. That's fine. And when we bounce, the torso stays still and we're pushing through the feet and the hands are along for the ride. So I'm not pumping through the arms like a push-up. My hands are following the bike down and my torso stays nice and still. Okay? That's what we want to do. Second, wiggle those bars side to side. Again, 90% of riders can't do this. And the reason why is because they don't support their torso with a core, and you got to do that. If you get that lengthened spine, that supported core, then what you're going to end up having is a nice feeling in your body where you can just move the hands freely, okay? Super important. All right, so let's speed things up. These things are really important to get the details of, so if you're following along so far and you've noticed a detail, tell me in the comments below, because this is extremely detailed format. If you like this, let me know, because otherwise I'm going to keep on doing the other types of videos where I'm like, cool, do this, boom, 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 and it's much faster. This one's way easier to edit for me, so I'm good either way. All right, so put those comments below, and we're moving on to braking with bravado. Now, the first thing I want you to do is go ahead and actually have your seat up tall, and you're going to find a steep driveway, and what we're going to do is we're going to switch braking between right and left, okay? So for beginner bikers, it's really helpful to kind of feel how the front and the back brake work. And we're going to go here on some concrete, all right? So like very low risk, we're going to go as slow as we can down something that's kind of steep, and you're going to squeeze the left brake, then let go and squeeze the right brake without lurching forward, okay? So you're going to squeeze the left brake or the right brake first, ride down, and then switch brakes like this. And your goal is to maintain the same speed the entire way down. What this will do for you is it'll teach you to control each brake independently. Both of them operate differently. The front brake, it's going to give you a little bit more power. And the back brake, it's going to be more likely to skid, and you're going to need to squeeze the back brake a little bit harder. With the front brake, the bike is also going to dive a little bit more, and you'll feel that your weight will shift, which is why it's so important that you stay seated the entire time doing this drill. So let's play this in slow motion again. I don't have the best camera angle. I tried really hard with my drone. But you can see, all right, so this hand is braking right here. This one, you can see my pointer finger out. We got no braking. All right, so playing in slow motion, switch. Did you see my fork dive a little bit right there? Do you notice the fork diving? Right there. That's because I'm switching between brakes, but you'll notice that my speed is maintained. Now switching again, and you can't see the last switch. So do this drill a few times. It's actually really fun. Just get your driveway and get out there and practice it. It's a good time. Now the second braking drill that we want to do is we want to go out there. Now here's the thing. I wanted to show you guys what this looks like when your muscles are loose. That's why I took my shirt off. So nobody does this. I thought it might be helpful. So if you hate it, just roast me in the comments. This is your time to shine, trolls. I'm seriously, on this channel, I have gotten so little actual hate. Like, people are like, well, here's my position and here's why I think this, and in my experience, I'm like, guys, that's not even trolling. Like, that's actually a really good comment. So I appreciate you. I'm getting a lot of really good comments, but I'm not getting enough trolling. So I don't know. I'm trying to do some stuff where I can get some troll hate, but bring it on. So watch my hands move. Watch how loose that is. Now, you guys remember from the last video where I talked about getting low, having the pedal press engaged, and supporting the torso with the core? Well, I'm doing the same thing, but this time I'm braking. Now, the problem with braking is that if we brake with a stiff, rigid body, like this, right here, I intentionally locked up every muscle in my body. What you're going to notice is my back tire skidded. That's not necessarily a problem, but what we want to do when we're braking is have full control of the bike, and we want to be able to move, all right? Now, the problem I see with a lot of people when they're braking is they get really, really stiff. And again, I tried really intentionally to lock up every muscle in my body. I was like, forearms flexed, arms flexed, just locked. And what ended up happening was that because I was so still on the bike, I felt a lot of weight in my hands. I had to work really hard, and it just didn't feel really smooth. Plus, my back tire was skidding. Now, one thing I wanted to encourage you to do is brake using your strong muscles in your legs if you can. Now, in some situations, you may be going downhill and taking a lot of hits, in which case you need to be able to be strong. But guys, like, how you brake, it's a lot more about mobility than it is about raw strength. And the truth is, when we brake, it's so much easier just to be loose. And one thing I wanted to point out here, I can't show it side by side, it's in the same file. This is a video of me braking, just being relaxed as I possibly can, and pushing through my strong muscles, which are in, obviously, my feet and my legs, right? Do you see how my upper body was moving differently? How I was very relaxed? So what you want to do is two things. One, you got to do the pedal press. Surprise. When we do the pedal press, it gives us something to brace against. And you can brace against your front foot on a gentle decline like this. Okay? So you'll see my front foot is kind of up, back foot kind of back. I'm pushing those pedals away from each other. And what you're also going to notice here is the angle of my cranks. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone talk about this. Some people have tried. They talk about where to put your body and how to put your weight and all this stuff. It's not about you. It's about the cranks. Okay? Because if the cranks are in the wrong position, most people, what they do is they tilt the cranks forward when they're braking down a hill. And I actually demonstrated that here. See this? Cranks tilted forward. Can you see that? Compare that to right here, where the cranks pointed in this video. Can you see this? What you're going to notice is the cranks are level with the horizon. In other words, it's going to be easier for me to brace against something that's like this, going downhill, than if the cranks are flat. I'm going to be leaning over if the cranks are flat. Those are the secrets. Pedal press plus just simply rotating the cranks back 5-10 degrees or so. Just feel it out. What you're going to notice on a downhill descent like this is that now all of my momentum, I can stop my momentum through my feet, which helps me feel more balanced. Could you imagine what it would be like to go down hills and just be completely relaxed, like in this other goofy video I did without my shirt on, right? So like the reason why, again, you can notice here, if you look closely, my feet look like they're level. That's because the cranks are level with the horizon. I'm not tipping over the front of my cranks worried about where my balance is. I'm just feeling good. So again, I would start before anything else. If you're actively braking down a hill, pedal press, rotate the cranks back a little bit, and then just stand on top of what you created there. And again, the test for if you can do this well is being able to rock the hands side to side. If you can do this, then you're going to be able to maintain your balance, and more importantly than anything else, then you're doing the hard work with the muscles that are the strongest. Okay? There we go. It's the wrong video. So again, here's another example, like on a real trail, you know, what does it look like to brake downhill with a shirt on? Looks like this. And you'll just notice I'm able to wiggle the bar side to side. Notice the feet level with the horizon. They're kind of pointed at the camera there, and that's it. So once we've got this braking drill done, we want to talk about doing some cool stuff, like being able to skid the tires. Now, skids are fun. Skids are for kids, but more importantly, skids give us control. What did I say? Skids give us control, and the reason why they give us control is because they teach us how to modulate the brakes at the very edge of grip. So watching the back tire here, you're going to notice a little skid right there. Okay? So the next drill that I suggest that you try is to go out to the trails, find a very level, like predictable downhill trail, grab your rear brake and your front brake at the same time, but grab your rear brake hard enough to where you skid, and then let go of the brake to where you can get the tire to roll again. And what this will do for you, very simple, it'll teach you, okay, where does my tire skid and what can I do about it? All right, so pay attention to that out on the trail the next time you go, and I think you'll like it a lot. Now, again, I want to back up and show you guys something here. Again, lots of channels telling you where to rock your weight and all this crazy movement stuff. You don't need to move very much in braking. You just need to make sure your cranks are in the right position. You need to make sure that you're using your legs. Again, you can feel this out. You don't have to worry about putting your body in a position. That's weird. Instead, rock those cranks back just a little bit, brace against that front foot. And look, I'm standing up really tall. Like, you don't have to crouch down. I can't play this one in full speed because it's like 120 FPS. So just imagine that I'm going fast there. All right, so moving on to the next one. We're done with braking. Let's talk a little bit together about the Ballerina-Bike balance drill. And this is one video. I'm going to point out a couple things in it. And this drill, what it is, it's a race to be the slowest. So I suggest you get a friend. I tried doing this with my kids, but they got frustrated. They were like slamming their feet down. I'm like, guys, it's how you lose. You lose by putting a foot down. And so the goal is to find a relatively flat section of trail, maybe a little bit downhill with a couple uphills in it, and move your seat up so you're sitting on the seat. And we want to go and just pedal and brake to go as slow as we possibly can. I'm just going to talk through this because otherwise you're going to get bored. A couple things that you want to do, again, is see how slow you can go. This isn't the slowest I can go, but it's pretty close. And a couple things you can do to keep your balance are turning the bars side to side. And the second thing you can do is also you can wiggle the bike side to side under you. So standing up an inch or two like this and just moving the seat under you can be helpful for balancing side to side. Another tip as well for going slow and building balance is ratcheting the pedals. So you're going to notice I don't do a full pedal forward. I just simply go down and back, down and back, down and back like this right here. That'll help you maintain forward momentum without having to go through an entire pedal stroke. And that's important because if you go through an entire pedal stroke going really slow, you lose all your power when your cranks are tall and short like this. So there you go. That's something that can help you on slow climbs, slow descents, and also you can use the brake as well. So that's a good balance drill for you to try. Again, risk-free. No one's going to make fun of you for that. Pretty cool. I want to talk about how to gobble up some gnarly rock gardens. So there's two ways to do this. We can do this actively and passively, but first, I'd like to show you how the biggest mistake is made with rock gardens, and it is by being one with the bike. Example. Okay? It's very hard to see what's going on here, but what I did is I locked every muscle in my body and I passively took all those hits every single time that the bike moved. Okay, so let's watch this in slow motion. What you're gonna notice on the bike is that as I'm coming up to the rocks here, you see my head bobbing and rocking forward like this, boom, boom. Okay, what's happening is that all of the rock the rock is causing my front tire to move, which then the motion is going up into my body, and then I become kind of like the passenger. Everything is acting on me. This feels bad because if you ride like this, ultimately, you know, everything that happens in the trail gets transferred up to you and you feel it in your head and you lose your balance, all right? So the main thing that we want to do is we want to either actively absorb or passively absorb. So we're going to talk about passively absorbing the bumps in the trail first. This is where I would go if I were honestly, beginner or advanced. You can get a lot of value out of doing this drill. So what you do is you make sure that your elbows and your knees are allowed to move. And the only way you can do this, pedal press, support the torso with the core. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hold that torso nice and level, and we're going to let everything else move around the torso. Okay, now a good cheat code for this is to get in a little bit too low of a position for the situation. I don't need to be this low to successfully ride the trail. Like, it's just, you don't need to. You know, my son can ride this on a hardtail. It's not hard. And so what you need to do is just bend those knees and elbows a lot. That means it's harder to resist the forces of the bike coming up and going down. And then what you do is you just hold your head nice and level and you let the bumps, like right here, you let those bumps move your arms and legs, but not your torso. Okay? I'm actually going to go that one more time. If you want to pay attention to the front wheel, watch the distance between the front wheel and my head. You see the changes that's happening right there? The wheel's moving a lot, head is not moving very much. That's your goal. Now, once you've passively absorbed some bumps, then we're going to move on and talk about how to actively absorb bumps, even if you're a little kid. So I gotta admit, this way's a little faster, so you're gonna have to watch closely. All right, and what I'm doing is I'm demonstrating proactivity. Okay, what is proactivity? Proactivity is you put your torso where it's about to be. So if the trail goes up and I'm here, I'm gonna move my torso up one step ahead of the trail. If the trail goes down, I'm gonna move my torso down one step ahead of the trail, and then I'm gonna fill in the gaps with my hands first, and my feet will follow. That's it. It's actually pumping 101, and this is how we do it. So you're gonna notice it looks like I'm kind of jumping over, and really this is more of a timing thing and a movement thing than anything else. So the first one is right here. You can barely see it because I'm behind the tree. Let's try this actually. So I'm a little bit behind the tree, but the trail's about to go up by 13 inches, maybe 14. So what I do is you can see my torso going up. Has the trail moved up yet? No, but my torso is. Next thing I'm gonna do, hold on, let's see if I can zoom it out just a bit. So the next thing I'm gonna do is once I've moved up is I'm gonna bring the bike up with me. Can you see that? And the next thing I'm gonna do, the trail goes down, so I'm gonna move my torso down. Watch this right here. And then the trail goes up again right there. There's a couple bumps right here that I want to avoid. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my torso up again right here. Wing. And what happens? The bike follows. You notice how my tires are off up in the air? It's not that hard. That was actually really perfect. So cool. So the goal with active absorption of the trail, it's very simple. If the trail goes down, I want to be landing on that part. If the trail goes up, I want to be either unweighted or I want to be completely jumping over the part where the trail goes up. That's how you get more speed. So if you like this video, go ahead and hit like right now because I got plenty more coming for you if you like this stuff. And again, if you're a beginner and this looks difficult to you, again, just go practice it. It's one of those things where you can mess it up and still get a lot of feedback from the bike and have a lot of fun. So again, put the torso where it's about to need to be one step ahead of the trail, and then let the bike follow and just fill in the gaps with the hands. Let's talk together about how to do a proper track stand. And track stands are quite easy if you know the real secret, which is still track stands are easy to balance. So the first thing that I wanted to demonstrate here is just kind of rocking the bike side to side. And you can also turn the bar side to side while trying to keep your torso as still as possible. You're going to notice if the bike runs away from you, though, that you want to use that back brake. And so with small movements, just rocking the bike side to side is good. And you can also notice here, I'm doing tiny pedals forward and tiny pedals backward. This takes a little bit of practice, but really there's 4 techniques: pedaling, ratcheting, turning the bars, and wiggling the bike side to side. Try a combination of all 4 of these, and you'll be really good at track stands in no time at all.